I'm Joe Dahmen, an associate professor at Sala, and I'm teaching a vertical studio this fall called Material Ecologies, Coastal Community Infrastructure. It's open to MLA, MArch, and MArchless students. The studio is situated in Banfield, a small coastal community on the southwest coast of Vancouver Island. It's the ancestral territory of the Hawaiian First Nations, a self-governing modern treaty nation. Together, the communities have about 1,000 year-round residents, but it sees about 10,000 tourists a year to the region. Banfield is connected to Port Alberni, the closest large city, by the Banfield Main, an 85-kilometer-long unimproved logging road that runs along Alberni Sound. So the Banfield Main is scheduled to be paved in the next couple of years, making this coastal community a community in transition. There's expecting a large influx of visitors. You can think about where Tofino was about 30 years ago, and you'd have Banfield. This is the community dock in West Banfield currently. So students who enroll in the studio are going to collaborate on the design of a kayak launch and storage facility and a network of trails and other social infrastructure for the town. So the studio will be highly collaborative with the goal by the end of term to produce a single comprehensive design proposal that can be constructed by the community. A version design of a pavilion for a Banfield Park designed by students in a similar studio last year is currently under construction by the community, and so we hope the same will happen this year. Banfield is adjacent to the Broken Group Islands, a popular sea kayaking destination, and is also the northern terminus of the West Coast Trail, a rugged 5-day hike along the coast. The town lies within the coastal fog zone, a lush coastal landscape that's also the site of a great deal of logging. And so the community is in transition in another sense, in that it's surrounded by a 365-hectare community forest, and they're in the process of rethinking how they approach this to hopefully acknowledge the importance of this ecological preserve, both for the social fabric of the community as well as the ecological one. So as we think about the materials for the studio that'll be drawn from this community forest, it's an opportunity to rethink some forestry techniques, and I'll get into what that means in the context of the studio in a moment. The site for the studio you can see represented here. There's a bog boardwalk through Westminster Bog, a sensitive ecological area, and then the kayak and canoe storage in West Banfield along the inlet. And this is the site of the previous studio represented above. So here is the site of the kayak launch and storage facility. It's quite striking. And this is the terminus of the Westminster Bog Trail. You can see that the community has been building some ad hoc kind of trails around the region, and we hope to kind of formalize this a little bit more in preparation for the influx of visitors. So I thought it would be useful to see what the studio last year engaged in, as it will follow a somewhat similar course. So it begins with precedent research that's done on an individual level. We'll build a collaborative site model. We'll have an optional site visit to Banfield, COVID permitting, at the end of September, and this will be partially funded by the Banfield Public Affairs as well as Teaching and Learning Enhancement Fund from UBC. We'll get around on boats. It's very instructive to be there on the site. We'll meet with community members and stakeholders. This is Caleb flying a drone over some of the forestry, community forest logging sites, site documentation. During the term, we'll meet periodically with project stakeholders over Zoom, as Banfield's fairly remote, and so we'll use some resources at CERS and elsewhere to do that effectively. We'll also be thinking through forestry techniques with the help of Suzanne Simard, who's a global leader in sustainable forestry, who also is on the faculty of forestry here at UBC. So she's agreed to have a role in the studio with her doctoral students. And we'll be working in Sketch, digital models as well, a lot of collaborative work. So most of the work in the studio will be undertaken with small teams. I'm a fan of mock-ups and model building at large scales, so we'll engage in those activities in the shop. And hybrid kind of representational techniques. And as I say, that the end result will be to provide a set of documents that enable the community to construct what we're designing. And so we'll get to a fairly detailed level So it's a great place to pick up some of those skills if you're interested in that. We'll get down to kind of very fine scale. So this was some furniture for the pavilion I mentioned. This was the final kind of construction set that they produced by the end of the term, which also even got down to the level of material takeoffs to enable the community to kind of run some costing exercises. So it really will be a kind of soup to nuts approach to these critical pieces of community infrastructure, drawing on local material ecologies. And I hope to see you in the fall. It should be a really interesting term. Thank you.